Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. We're going to look back here quickly at the month of March because the temperature pattern across the United States was basically dominated by very deep troughs throughout the West. And right now, this has been one of the coldest and also one of the wettest Marches on record for much of the western United States. What we've seen repeatedly are deep troughs running over ridges over the southeast. And that's why when we look back on March across North Carolina, even though we did have that big freeze event that happened earlier in the month around the 20th, we're going to see overall, though, that we are looking at about near average with maybe a slight warm bias. On the precipitation side of it, though, we see a little bit different story. So despite some of the better rains that came in the last 7 days, including the rains last weekend, a little bit that we had throughout the week, we're still from not only here in North Carolina, but up to Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, dry. We can see the precipitation improving as we get down to South Carolina and north central Georgia. This has been an area that's seen some more storm activities, therefore wetter conditions. You can also see how dry it's been in the plains. This is right in the heart of the hard winter wheat crop here. But flooding rains on the Mississippi River, a tremendous amount of snow. There's up to 12 inches of liquid in some of the snow in the headwaters of the Mississippi, in a broad area here of 2 to 6 inches of liquid in the snow. And then you come out west, the Sierra Nevada mountains have over 100 inches of liquid in that snowpack. And we've just continued to see this area just get hammered with just snowfall event after snowfall event. Now we're doing this because in a few moments we need to see or try to detect if there's any reason to anticipate a pattern change. Because I do think there will be one in the near term, but I'm not convinced it's going to last. Now, my idea is, of course, this is all allowed to change with time, but I want to present to you the latest information I have here. I'm recording this on Sunday night, so we'll just kind of keep watching this throughout the week, and we'll bring another update next week. But I want to remind you, my update next week will come out on Tuesday, not on Monday, just because I will be out of town for the Easter weekend. Okay, so let's go from here and look at this another way. This is the last 7 days of precipitation. So we did get good moisture into parts of South Carolina, into North Carolina, Virginia, and then very heavy rainfall through parts of Georgia. So this was all just in the last 7 days. And again, strong storms, hail. This was a rough go of it. But still, in the longer term, this didn't offset their deficits earlier in the month. That's what I want to make a point about. But this did chase a lot of growers out of the fields, and this delayed a lot of progress. So we're just trying to assess where we've been. Now remember, the pattern that got us here, systems dip down like this, they just rip through the west and they eject. So notice these areas that have been drier, like this big spot in the southern and central plains. In fact, you go back over the last 30 days, the drought that's been in this area has just continued to expand over that time period. But we're still abnormally dry over here in parts of Virginia, North Carolina, pockets of South Carolina, and southern Georgia. And I want to show you something real quick. I should have brought this up a moment ago, but if you look at the new drought monitor, this was just released last Thursday. We now see that this area in Virginia, North Carolina, and one small pocket in South Carolina is showing up as abnormally dry again. So I want to let you know that 30-day kind of dry streak there has started to show up again on the new drought monitor. Now, the same setup that delivered the severe weather we saw here 2 weeks ago delivered this at the end of last week. Over 900 reports of severe weather, including 108 tornadoes. That was then followed, remember, on April 1st with a bunch of severe wind reports here in parts of the Northeast getting into the eastern Great Lakes. We did have some of the stronger storms come through North Carolina and Georgia. These are all wind reports, on Saturday. Well, that same setup is still in the pattern going into this week, and that's why we've got another day where we're watching out in the Midwest for the severe weather. This is going to be on Tuesday. We're going to watch to see if these storms do make it over here into the southeast by the time we get in later into the week. So I just want to let you know kind of what's going on in the near term here. Okay, the pattern. This is what we're going to be watching for. March gave us a blocking setup right here out in the Pacific Ocean. It was a high over low setup between Hawaii and Alaska. And the flow came off of this and dove into a deeper trough over the west and ran up over what seemed to be this kind of resurging southeastern ridge. What really forced the flow to come up here, though, which opened up the Gulf and has set up this very active go of severe weather, has been this large ridge that's been sitting between Greenland and the Hudson Bay. All right, with that in mind, I want to show you where this pattern's going. So I'm going to click play on this, and I just want you to look for differences. So as we started off, more deep trough sweeping through. That's the monster midweek. Lifts up over a ridge in the southeast. But you notice a lot of ridging showing up in the west, troughing in the east by the time we get to like the 10th, 11th, 12th. And after that, some more moderation in the pattern. Now, what's important about this, let's just pause this here, is we got this big system sweeping through early this week with a large blocking ridge out ahead of it. So it's going to run straight to the Great Lakes and then up into the Hudson Bay. See that? That means as this system goes through, it will only barely be able to drag a weak front through us, which is why I don't think the severe weather threat is high on Thursday. Now, after that, though, look at the trough that builds into Alaska. That's where we watch for these things. Remember where I showed you there was a big ridge earlier? It was here and it was here. Now they've flip-flopped. So the pattern opens up across the United States. And what we'll see here is that all the cold air that's been stored up in the west is displaced east once we get out there about the 8th, 9th, and 10th. We see troughs of low pressure showing up along the east coast around the 10th, 11th, 12th. So warm up happening west, major snowmelt, huge risk of flooding here like in California. But then we see the pattern getting rid of that or eroding it by the middle of the month. My point behind telling you this is we're going to have this brief time period where we're going to go over cool again. Take a look. This is a 5-day sliding window of average temperatures. Now we're out here. Let's just pause it right here. This is April 5th through 9th. So we still see more mild conditions across the territory. But then as we play this forward, as the warmth comes into the west, all that colder air gets rocked and moved down here toward the south and east. Now, it's not ridiculously cold, but it is colder than normal. So we need to try to understand what this is going to mean. We'll talk about more in a second. What you've seen through here, this is all kind of a feedback from the snow we're expecting this week. So we are expecting a snowstorm on really Monday night throughout the day on Tuesday to pop out of Wyoming, hit South Dakota, the Red River Valley of the North, moving through parts of northern Minnesota, putting down another foot of snow in this area. Major spring flooding issues here, possibly high prevented plant acres in this area, and all because of this additional snow. Remember, while that's happening, severe weather, heavy rains in this area. Okay, play this on out though. Remember the pattern begins to moderate again toward the middle of the month. So we need to be on the lookout for that next cold shot. But what I want to do with this is I want to just look at the overall precipitation pattern. For the next 2 weeks, we see that we're wetter in parts of North Carolina, South Carolina, and into Georgia. And I'm going to show you how stalled out frontal boundaries in this area seem to be creating this. Now, right now, today, what we're watching here on Sunday, let's let this reset here, is this little guy right here. It does not look like much, does it? That little shortwave in the flow is going to move right over the top of us over here toward North Carolina here in the first couple days of this week. This is the deeper trough behind it that's going to sweep through and create the big system on Tuesday into Wednesday that's going to run across the country. So what these two things are doing right now, we've got severe thunderstorm watch out for a big area here. A tornado watch out for a big area here. Multiple severe thunderstorm warnings in this. But look what's behind it. Strong winds, red flag warnings. They've already got a blizzard warning posted for parts of South Dakota. And this is the next system that comes pulling through. There are, here on Sunday night, frost advisories out for parts of Virginia, getting through Washington, D.C., up into parts of Pennsylvania. So that's how close some of this colder air is. But these storms right down here today, this is what I was watching on Sunday night as I was recording this. The sun setting here. We had a crystal clear day today in North Carolina, South Carolina, a little cloud cover down here in Georgia. But what do you notice? Big storms right here. Now, those large storms with there's a dust storm on the back of it. I didn't even notice that until I just looked at this. We're going to watch where these storms are going to go. So let me just start you off here. This is Sunday night, and here's those storms. Where are they going to be by Monday? Well, this is Monday morning. They're moving across Alabama towards northern Georgia. And those storms kind of pull through northern Georgia right in through here. And then they eventually get into South Carolina and North Carolina Monday night. That's good. I know this is going to delay some field work, but I'm more concerned about longer term water issues. So to see that come through this area early this week, it's a good shot at some moisture. Now after that goes through, all attention goes back to the Midwest. Big storm system here, blizzard conditions in the north, and we're going to be watching out on Tuesday night for some severe weather ripping right in through this part of the central U.S. into Wednesday morning. So again, a very dynamic system setting up in the middle part of the country. Just to show you here, I'm going to take you to my website, agweather.com, ag-wx.com. You can come over here and click on any of these links on the side, and they'll change the position of these maps. Severe weather metrics. I just want to point out that while today on Sunday the severe storms are here, we're not anticipating them, a big severe weather outbreak as they move toward you here on the day on Monday. Okay. So let's come back to now looking at multi-model analysis of where the next system goes. So this is the rain coming through on Monday. See it in both models here. This is Monday night into Tuesday and now into Wednesday. So that's when this big system on Tuesday night into Wednesday goes ripping across the midsection of the country. Now, like so many of these, because their trajectory is like this in both models, the frontal boundary as it comes across Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia is weakened. It's stretched out. It's no longer as strong. And therefore, we will see a chance on Thursday of some isolated showers and storms. But that's not going to be the main event. The main event happens after this because the frontal boundary, which is connected to this low, both models, it's going to stall. And when it stalls, you see how the storms start to fire up again out of Texas and Louisiana. They're going to move over us this weekend. It's in both models, coming through Alabama into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina here on Saturday. So we're going to watch out for weekend storms adding more rain. And what's actually going on here is we're just sandwiching. There's a high-pressure cell here to the north, and there's another high-pressure cell that's down here to the south. And the net effect is to squeeze right in the middle. That's where we're going to put the rain. So this is this upcoming Saturday, getting a little bit into Sunday. And you can see in both models, possibly a stormy weekend and a stormy start to next week. Now again, next week, I'll release my video on Tuesday, so we'll keep a close eye on what this is going to mean. But overall, I just want you to get an idea on how much precip we're going to get out of this. So let's go ahead and play it forward. Here is the first system. That's the one coming through on Monday. So if we just pause here on Tuesday morning, we've got a couple places that'll be able to pick up an inch out of these storms, parts of Georgia. Overall, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch is what's expected. We then, let this play through. Sorry about that. That's the weakened front that's trying to come through on Thursday and Friday. See it there? And then what we're going to watch is the front stall out next weekend, and that's where the additional rain comes through. So if we just look out here over the next week, let's play this all out to Monday evening, we're looking at some heavier rain in through this corridor. Possibly some places picking up 2 to 3 inches of rain, all because of the stalled out front at the end of the week into early next week, okay? Now that front, because it's going into next week, is also showing up a little bit in our week 2 forecast. You see it's still sitting right here. But after that, remember how the pattern kind of opened itself a bit? We'd actually see drier conditions across a big section of the country. And even though there's some colder air coming in, still no strong signals that week 2, this would take us all the way to the 16th of April, is going to be overly wet at that point. But we know what's coming in the next 10 days. Okay, from here, let's talk temperatures. Everywhere that you see in gray on this is where we're currently forecasting a frost over the next 7 days. But as you know, I'm a bit concerned about when that deeper trough shows up. Let's go back and look at it here. Right around this time frame of the 12th. And so one of the things I want to show you again, I've showed this to you before, is you can always come to my website, ag-wx.com, click up here and start typing in a city. I always just choose Raleigh because it seems to be front of mind here. So I type in Raleigh, click on it, puts in the number 47, click submit. Now what this will do, and by the way, I'm adding a whole bunch of new features to this in April. I'm super excited about it. This gives you a quick 7-day forecast with all the models. All right, so there's your chance. Look at the rain coming up on Saturday here from the models. But what you can do is come down to the bottom and click on any of these radio buttons to get information. So for example, I'm looking at year-to-date precip. Raleigh's currently at 82.5% of normal. They're off by about 2 inches of rain. You can see that compared to the last 5 years. But go up here and click on the 10-day multi-model temperatures, because what we're going to be watching out for, remember, is some cooler air coming in once we get out there again about the 9th and 10th and then the 11th and 12th. And you're watching for any of these weather forecast models to drop temperatures down into the frost zone, because we know we can't have a frost in mid-April. Okay, so we're just watching out for that, and I want to give you a resource and a tool to be using. But as it currently stands, take a look at these next 7 days in terms of temperatures. Here's Monday's highs. Again, rain cooled air in through here. Warm sector opens up on Tuesday, so jump up way up in the temperatures here, upper 70s to low 80s. And then that's the warm sector that carries through on Wednesday. Remember, we could see some storms coming through Wednesday into Thursday. There it is, Thursday. And then after that, the cooler air arrives for Friday into Saturday. And you know that the frontal boundary stalls out here, so we're going to watch over the weekend for storms to roll along that frontal boundary. So cooler weekend coming up. But we know overall that in the day 5 through 10 time period, we got some cooler air coming in as the west warms up. But day 10 through 15 already starts to show the moderation. All right. Now, does the Climate Prediction Center agree with this? This is the 6 to 10 day forecast they released here. Take a look at what they're anticipating in the day 8 through 14. So there's our cooler weather coming in with the stalled out frontal boundary we talked about. But then fully into the week 2, they're no longer a strong wet signal here. And maybe some more mild air coming in. Their week 3, week 4 forecast. I'm sorry, there's the week 2. I was on the wrong diagram. So again, near normal precip, but no longer the risk of the really cold air. Then here's the week 3, week 4 forecast. So a repeat possibly of this pattern we've been seeing with some ridging here. Now, we also have their newest forecast for the month of April. And what they're considering here is kind of a repeat of what we saw in the month of March. This looks very much like what I showed you at the beginning of today's presentation. And I know why they're doing this. The reason for that is because the MJO is being forecast by the models to pop way back out over here into the Western Pacific. And if it does that, that's what it did in March. Now, if it doesn't, if instead it sweeps back into null space, then this forecast I just showed you is wrong. But if it does, look what it typically historically gives us. Troughs on the west coast, ridges on the east. The flow runs right in between the two, and that's what sets up the really active pattern we've had and could put it back on repeat for the end of the month of April. All right. So what does the European model say? Well, the European model still hung up on this colder signal for much of the country save the central and southern plains. And on the precipitation side of it, let's go out there, a 30-day outlook. This goes all the way out to mid-May. They're biasing much of Ag Carolina's territory here, kind of the AgSouth area with wetter conditions. So we need to watch this carefully. I think this is a bit nuanced. I don't have much confidence in this forecast from the European model. I'll be looking forward to getting the new update soon. But I do want to stretch this out one last time for you. And what I want to do is I want to show you the latest update on ocean temperatures to tell us what's going on with El Nino. So we saw the demise of La Nina very quickly. El Nino conditions are forecast to turn back in. We've talked about that a lot over the last several weeks. There's still a lot of cold water along the west coast. We need to watch this carefully. As it stands, the Gulf is warm, the Western Atlantic is warm. And we need to know what that means in terms of early season warmth and what that also means in terms of precipitation later in the year. Because right now, this is what this Climate Prediction Center has got for May, June, July. So we've already looked at April. Let's now go to May, June, July. And they're wet. I mean, right here. And on the temperature side of it, they're mild. The greatest heat in Texas back into the Great Basin area through the Four Corners states. But I just want to remind you that's what May, June, and July are currently being thought about by the Climate Prediction Center. Okay, one last thing to do here. Quick international update on temperatures. We're finally starting to see some cold air return to Siberia. That's what's helping to relieve it here in the western United States. This is all working together. Colder throughout Europe, but we do see colder conditions in Western Australia for fall. But the precipitation pattern, I think, is a bit more important. So starting in Australia, wet in Western Australia. They just finished a wet week over here in Eastern Australia. This is delaying some planting and causing some local issues with the planting of their winter crops. But overall, not hearing a lot. Western Europe went back over dry, Eastern Europe wet. No real risk of early season drought development on the Yangtze. But South America is where the story needs to be told as we finish this up. Much of Brazil's growing area going to wet the next 10 days, wetter than average. And what that means is the safrinha crop, which is in and established, is getting a drink at the right time. That means the safrinha crop will likely be large. Where there's drier conditions is in far southern Brazil and back into Argentina again, although Argentina has only shown up with pockets of drier weather, not a complete dry signal. So there is a lot of things changing as one hemisphere goes into the next season and the southern hemisphere ends a season. We'll just keep you up to date. I'll look forward to talking to you again next Tuesday. Thanks.